Hello and welcome to the Cameo Show. I'm your host, Cameo. Today we are joined by my husband and co-host, Greg Braun. Hi, Greg.
How's it going?
And guys, I am totally geeking out. This may be the guest so far that I have been so nervous, such a nerd ball about. Her name is Desiree Wodicker. She is a financial planner by day. She is a professional Muay Thai fighter, and I might be her biggest fan for real. Welcome to the show, Des. I am so jacked to have you. It's like I can't even believe I'm exposing myself like this. So
All good. That's all good. Yeah. Thanks so much. Thanks so much for the introduction. And Greg, great to meet you. I'm super excited about this kind of journey that I've embarked on the last, call it 8 to 10 years in general. And I'm starting to find my footing in terms of like the direction of my life and the impacts that I've had throughout those years, and kind of sharing that journey with others, right? And it's been really receptive to the community that I built on Instagram. I don't share a lot about my personal life outside of fighting. And so I think, giving a little bit more exposure to that has been really helpful for others to just resonate with and apply some of the things that I've done over the years to their lives. And so, we're all about kind of human empowerment, I'd say, on my page. The message that I send, mindset, health, right? All of these things kind of are incorporated in us as humans, and we need, three things: wealth, health, and relationships. And so my focus is on, a lot of those things, just overall in my life in general.
yes, and you definitely showcase that on your Instagram. Everyone, here's how I became a fan. Greg and I started doing kickboxing a couple of years ago, and your Instagram feed kind of starts filling up with the things that you're searching for. And all of a sudden, here's Des, and she's doing the progressive combo of the week. And I'm like, give me a post-it note. I got to write this down. I am bringing this out this week in sparring.
Let's
And I'm
go.
not kidding. I would like write it down, like, okay,
So
watch it over and over and over again.
Yeah.
And there was a day that I posted a reel I had on your sweatshirt. I tagged you in it. You liked it. You followed me back and shared it. And I ran in the house from the pool, jumping up and down. Like you would have thought it was
Oh my God.
Justin Bieber himself. Like it was like a
Hey,
major day. So,
Yeah.
but yes, your page is inspiring. It's motivating. You are also a mom. You share a lot of what you're doing. Like you said, not super personal, but you share what you're doing in your life with your horse
Yeah.
and with your son and with food. Like it is definitely a space to be inspired and motivated, whether you enjoy kickboxing and fighting or not. Like
Yeah.
this is a woman that you want to be following along with. So I'm elated to have you to dig into that a little bit more beyond the fighting. But
Yeah.
let's start there. How did you get into Muay Thai?
Yeah, it was actually kind of ironic. So well, first let's start. I did gymnastics competitively, very competitively, junior, like Olympic team type levels. My gym shut down. I stopped doing gymnastics. And then like as high school went on, I played soccer, and I cheered, and I did that. I grew up in Missouri. And so that was an interesting upbringing. But we're a big wrestling state, but I never, like, even coming from a household where my dad was like ex-force recon Marine, like I never had combat experience. Like he never exposed that kind of things to me, even though he kind of raised me like a boy. But like when I got older, I was like, as I transitioned into like, hey, I want to be a healthier human being, I just had an open mind about like trying new things. Like, of course, I did like what your normal person did, went to 24-hour fitness, went to just, regular workout kind of situations. I tried spinning. I did a bunch of what is the Zumba? I did Zumba for a
Oh,
while.
yeah. Like
Super
dance
fun.
workout. Yeah, it
Yes,
is so
I
fun.
loved it. I did Zumba. And then my girlfriend at the gym was like, hey, there's this gym down the street. They have CrossFit, they've got boxing, like really, really cool place. And that's my current gym now, CSA. And I was like, wow, I've never done either of those things. And I was like, I'd be down to go and check it out. So we went together, and they are offering Saturday free classes for CrossFit, very intro level, just, mostly body weight, stuff like that. And I got my ass kicked. I was like, oh my God, even not even using weights or barbell or anything. And I was like, this is fun though. I was like, it's high pace. The energy in here is good. The people are freaking awesome. And then as time was going on, I was like, I really want to punch something. And like, because they were all fighting on the other side. It's like divided, you know? And I was like, dude, this is fucking cool. And I'm like, I've never done this before. And obviously, like, you know, I started in like a very beginner boxing class. And one of the coaches there, MJ, he basically like held pads for me a couple times. And he's like, dude, you're super athletic. Like, you're kind of good at this, you know? And maybe he was just pumping me up. I don't know. But it was enough for me to like continue on the journey. And so, like, I started to like really fall in love with that. And so I started doing the classes religiously alongside CrossFit. And then as time went on, my coach now, he's like, you know, if you ever wanted to do this, you could try. And I was like, really? And so that's kind of how it started. Like, I'm gonna be honest, I fell into that. I also got my son into jujitsu, right? And so he was about 4, I think, at the time. And I got him into jujitsu, and it was like a great way to just like let him do what he did and like let me do my classes, and keep him occupied, right? And so yeah, it was kind of just really random, girl. Like that's why, you know, I push like, dude, you just never know where life can take you, you know?
Right.
And you have to like remind yourself to keep an open mind, because if not, like, you know, you never know where the path could take you, right? So
Right. We are big on that, and so many different stories in our own personal journeys that we could share. I knew I loved you. I just feel like we are like soul sisters. I too was a cheerleader. I feel like this dance choreography, gymnastics aids in what we do. I mean, I'm nowhere near your level of
no,
kickboxing or Muay Thai by any means, but like it aids in that, you know,
yeah.
balance and you know, the knowing what to do and when to do it. Like sometimes I have to get a rhythm in my head to be able to pull
Mhm.
something off.
Yeah.
But I also like I joined a gym a decade ago, and there were bodybuilders there, and they were like, you should do this. And I was like,
Yeah.
okay. And then I'm like, full go, you know, and then got
Yeah.
my professional bodybuilder status. And I'm like, sounds like we're very similar in that way. How long
Yeah.
ago was that for you when you first walked into the
I
gym?
think that was 2015, 16, like end of
Okay.
15 or beginning of 16.
So 8, 9 years.
Yeah, it's about 8, 9 years. Yeah. And you know, I think like to contest to what you're saying before about like trying new things, like, you know, my one of my partners at work, he and his wife, like they dedicate themselves to like trying a new hobby every year and like testing it out. And like for her, for example, she tried a calligraphy class, ended up being like super good at it, and basically started a whole business for wineries because they're in Napa for calligraphy for events. And it
Wow.
came all from that exploration of just them as a couple doing new things, like choosing one thing. He did a like what did he do? Like a what is it called? You know, an iron worker, and they like mold iron together and stuff.
Welding?
Yes, welding. I don't know why I couldn't
What?
Welding. Thank
Yeah.
you,
think
Greg.
of the
Thank you.
name. Thank you. Thank you, Greg. But yeah, he was like, I'm gonna do a welding class. And like this guy just went through welding. He's like, it was okay. It wasn't for me, but like it was cool. Like I made some cool stuff. Now I can fix things around the house for my wife, which we love,
Yeah.
you know.
You're right. Yeah, you
Mhm.
never know until you try. Like you
Yeah.
just we are so conditioned to succumb to the fear of being judged or, you know, our own self-doubt that often we don't even take the first step. The
Yeah.
hardest step is the one out the door, right? And as soon as
Right.
you're on your way, you can then make educated decisions about what you actually like and what you don't, as opposed to just judging it from afar. So
Yeah.
I love that so much. And we talk about that so much with all of our guests and between the two of us all the time, that you don't have to know what the hell you're doing. Just start, and you might
Yeah.
love it and you might not. And that's okay too, but
Yeah.
just try.
It's also cool that like you would have probably never done it unless one person just innocently said, "Hey, you can do this." And it gives you that little piece of permission to go,
Yes.
now a
Belief.
whole opportunity. Yeah, and then you have this whole new level of belief in yourself, and
Yes.
that's what you do for so many people through your Instagram, just so you know.
And I love that. And I
You
love
know?
that. I love that. And when I reflect back on my journey through things, so you know, I'm in wealth management now. I work for Morgan Stanley. You know, this was never, you know, so part of my journey last year, I was telling you guys, I did a lot of self-reflecting. I don't know if it's because I'm in my 30s now and, you know, I changed my birth control. I don't know what
All those things.
yeah,
All
all
those
of it.
things.
I'm clearer. No, seriously, like, you know, women
Yeah.
hormones, everything. Like I started, you know, therapy intensely. You know, I got into a very traumatic motorcycle accident when I was 16. My uncle died in front of me. I had reconstructive surgery on my jaw. I mean, it was traumatic. A lot of things have happened in my life where I felt like I covered a lot of these things up, right? And I was like, okay, I need to go back and reflect on that. But when I thought about, hey, how did I get here, right? Where were my decisions? Were they from an authentic place, right? That makes Desiree happy, or were they survival? And what I discovered was a lot of it was survival because, you know, everybody's not born in the silver spoon, you know, like we don't have families where we come from very wealthy. I didn't at all, you know,
Right.
and I had my son at 21 years old, and it was pure survival. And it was survival and tenacity that, you know, not quitting, that is where I am here today. It doesn't mean I'm not struggling today. I'm for sure struggling today, right?
Sure,
But
we all are if we're honest
yeah,
with ourselves in some capacity.
right.
Yep.
But it's like, hey, in this journey of fulfillment, like, did I make these decisions because I knew they were going to make me happy in the long term, right? And so making adjustments in our life based on those kind of changes. But I will say, like, you know, to go back to like the cheerleading and the gymnastics and all of these things, like the mindset part of it, like if the daughters out there in the world, and you know, it's really hard for young girls right now, you know, with social media, with everything, to have confidence. I mean, you guys know, you know, you have
For
kids.
sure.
And, you know, I'm a sister of eight. There's eight of us. And
Oof.
I have four sisters, excuse me. And, you know, cheerleading really helped me. Gymnastics really helped me because number one, you know, gymnastics is an independent sport, right? Everything kind of falls on you, and they're really hard on you too if you're competitive. So like that grit, I think, came a lot from those foundational things for me with sports. But cheerleading changed my life, right? Because it is a place where people are always fucking happy. You know, they're happy, you have a smile on your face. And even
Let's
when it's fake,
go.
yeah, you know, even when you're
Right.
not in the mood, you have to do that. And
Yep.
you have to perform, and you have to be a team member. And like, you know, that I think instilled a lot of things in me in terms of my mindset, and, you know, keeping a positive attitude even when things are going wrong, right?
Yeah.
So that was huge for me as well.
Yeah. You have to show up.
Yeah.
And if you can just show up and give yourself some compassion every once in a while, that maybe I'm not showing up like in the best mood, but I'm here. That's also half the battle. 1% better every day is something that we live by, one day at a time. We are both also sober for the last almost decade. One day at a time. You know, I don't know what's going to happen tomorrow, but today, here's how I'm showing up. And that
Mhm.
does start at a very early age. Your mindset, your perspective,
Mhm.
the tenacity that you learn along the way to show up even when you don't want to is
Yeah.
huge.
Yeah.
And so you started your son in jujitsu when he was really young.
Yes.
So I see him every once in a while on your Instagram at the
Yes.
gym. Um, Tell me a little bit more about like when you first started fighting, you probably were like, I too am a young mom. We had our daughter when I was 22.
Okay.
And there were all these things when I became a mom that I was like, okay, now what am I supposed to be? How am I supposed to show up as a mom? Because now I'm complete. It's not just me anymore. Like now it's totally a different world for us. And
Yeah.
so like as you make your decisions as a young mom and as you're kind of still figuring out your own traumas and your own things that you're working through, how was that something that impacted your life and his in a way that you had to like, you know, fight through? Fighting is like fighting, you know, it's combat sports, it's very
Yeah.
technical, but it's fighting. So like as a mom, what were some of those decisions that you had to face in making that choice?
Yeah, for sure. So my son does not practice jujitsu right now. He's competitive in basketball. And it was a transition for us just with that because he didn't want to. I think there was some fear in there because he's not a timid kid, but he's not an aggressive child, right? Like he's not someone that like, yeah, he's just not. And I think we did a competition and he kind of got choked by his cousin and he was like, I don't want to do this anymore, right? So
Mhm.
Sure.
it was like part of that. But I will say that like now we are very busy, right? We are very busy. Sometimes I'm from the office to the gym. I get a quick 45-minute workout in or pads with my coach, and then I have to run him to basketball. And we are a team, you know.
Yeah.
His dad and I are not together. However, we get along and we co-parent and things work. However, do have a lot more of the responsibility with him.
Sure.
And I have throughout the years. So it's been really hard to like, you know, figure things out with my own self and my own goals on top of like being a primary caretaker of this child, you know?
Right.
And so now as time has gone on, right, like before he didn't really understand like how much I was training and like we spent, you know, less time together kind of things. But, you know, we've made adjustments and like at dinner time, we eat dinner together, you know, we do certain things where we have quality time with one another because life is really busy. But now it's like I even told him like before, because he's not a lazy kid, but he's not the kid that's you're gonna be like, oh, he's motivated to go out there on his own without me pushing him to do these things. And this
Sure.
is just the evolution of where he's at right now. But in my head, I was like, it doesn't matter. Like, I'm showing him what it's like to grind. And I'm giving
Yes.
him this example in hopes that it sticks, you know, because that's all we can do as parents is hope that shit sticks. Like, I don't know.
That's right. Our daughter's 18, our son is almost 14, and it never gets any easier. It just changes. So from the baby to the toddler phase, you're like, holy shit. From toddler to teenager, you're like, oh my God. And now, into adulthood.
Yeah.
You're right. You just hope it sticks. You hope that your example is one that they want to follow and that they should be following. And I
Yeah.
love that you went there, that you went with like, I'm just showing him how to grind. And as he gets
Yeah.
older, he starts to understand. And we all, as parents, but specifically as moms, and I'm sure even more so as a single mom, um, we're trying to keep all these plates in the air, right? And trying to figure out like which ones are okay to sit down for a little bit and which ones do I need to
Yeah.
keep going all the time. And
Yeah.
you have a lot going on. How do you find that works best
Yeah.
for you? I mean, you
Yeah.
alluded to it a little bit with like making it a team effort and making sure you eat dinner together, but what are the
Yeah.
other ways that you keep the ship running?
Yeah, yeah. And I will say, like, I think, you know, your comment before about like showing up, like last year, I was having a really tough time. You know, there was a lot of stuff that I was going through, financial as well. You know, I'm building my book at Morgan Stanley, all of these things. I'm trying to figure out, you know, how to position myself properly in the fight space, right? Where, you know, it's lucrative enough for me, right? Like that I can capitalize on some of these things. I mean, I put a lot of work and you know, sweat equity right
Yeah,
into this
right.
entire game, and I should be able to eat off of those things. You know, I've been consistent in kind of all areas of my life, and so you know, you're right. It is hard. You know, it's hard. Number one, like it's hard to be a provider.
Yeah.
Okay. And I think a lot of people, and this goes out to a lot of the men because, you know, I'm a very, I'd say masculine woman in a way. There's a lot of masculinity that I've led with. And so learning how to be more in a feminine role has been like one of my goals. But there for men, as I've realized being a single mom growing up, that it's challenging being a provider. You know,
Yeah.
when you're providing for your family and the pressure of making it, the pressure of being successful, so that you can take care of others, that is something that I feel like a lot of men hold on their shoulders. And we don't talk about it enough, you know? Like I was raised with my dad who raised two daughters and like I criticized him and I, you know, there were things and he wasn't perfect, you know, he was an alcoholic and things like that that we had to go, but he always gave us a roof over our head. We always had some kind of food, we always had something, but I can imagine the pressures that he was dealing with. So that's one big thing that I think is huge. As a woman, it's different because society, that's not our role. Our role is to, you know, be a mother and be a wife or be these things.
Nurture. Yeah.
Nurture, right?
Yeah.
And so I've had to wear these hats all over, and it's like almost an identity crisis. Like, wow, I don't feel like I can be who I want to be because I'm wearing all of these hats and I'm doing all of these things. But at the end of the day, I have to figure it out, like I have no other choice. Either I fall, I fail, or I keep going, in whatever capacity that is. And when I tell you, I've been at the very bottom, I've been there living on the east side in St. Louis with drug dealer friends, with, no heat in the house, with absolutely nothing, working 2 jobs, working as a waitress in a strip club on the east side in Illinois. Like, I have been there,
Yeah.
and I know what that looks like. And I refuse to go to those places. You know what I mean? They're dark, dark places.
Absolutely.
Giving up is a dark, dark place. And so I think giving up is harder for someone to accept than pushing through challenges,
Yeah. Especially when you've been through some of those really rock bottom moments, you've
Yeah.
learned, like, I got through that.
Yeah.
Now I can handle this, and it sucks and it hurts and I'm
Yep.
not happy about it and I'm
Yep.
struggling, but I can get through this. And that's
Yes.
how you continue to show up and build that confidence. And
Exactly.
I will tell you that learning kickboxing and jujitsu, like, there's lessons in that in and of itself that definitely translate to everyday life. Like,
Absolutely.
getting smashed at 6 a.m. by someone twice your size is like,
Yep.
okay, well, I'm done with that today. So the rest of the day is cake. You know what I mean? Like, but on a serious note, hitting those
Yep.
rock bottom moments helps you really have perspective of, like you
Yes.
said, giving up is harder
Yeah.
than getting through what's in front of me.
Yeah.
And
And
I
I think,
appreciate that you brought that up about men too, by the way,
yeah.
in
Yeah,
the divider role.
100%. But like, to answer your question, I'm extremely disciplined. Like, my time management is impeccable, right? And I think a lot of people, they can't be good with their time or be organized if they don't have a path to follow,
Mhm.
right? And
Yeah.
that is a hard thing for a lot of people because they just don't know where they're at, right? We have to
Yeah.
start somewhere. And starting somewhere is understanding, okay, and that's goal setting. I want to be here. How is the most efficient way that I can get here? And if you don't know the answers to those things, it's something that you have to seek out for yourself. You have to seek information. You have to be willing to go through the work of finding that, of talking to the right people to put you on the right path, right? We are built on relationships, everything,
That's right.
everything, every single thing has to do with relationships. And I tell this to my young sisters, I tell this to my son, I tell this to these young people, that is like, our relationships are going to dictate where we go in our life. And if you are not somebody that has had access to mentorship or people, or coaching or all of these things, we have to figure out a way to do that, right? Because I've made so many mistakes in my life that I realized if I would have just asked for help or searched a little deeper or had someone giving me a path, of doing things, I wouldn't have had a lot of things that, happened to me. For example, I got in that motorcycle accident when I turned 18. I got $300,000. Okay. I blew all of it, you guys.
Sure.
I was in a
Mm,
dark place, a dark place. I was traveling the world. There were lessons that I learned very young. Bought a house when I was 18 years old. I did
mm,
invested in a men's business, a clothing business, lost all my money in that. It was not a healthy place. And at the time, my dad was actually an advisor at Wells, or he was at Payne Weber, I think. And we were not getting along. Okay. And if he would have recognized, and I'm not blaming, this is something that I've accepted, but what
Sure.
I feel like during that time is I needed love and I needed support and I needed guidance. And there was nobody around me to give me those things.
Yeah.
And so I wasn't strong enough to get out there and ask for help. But if
Yeah.
I would have gone and talked to a financial advisor, talked to somebody like myself, maybe I would be in a very, very different situation than I am in right now. You
mhm,
Sure.
understand?
Absolutely.
And it changed my whole life.
Yeah.
And so, I tell these young people, we have to be aware of our self-control and our decision making, because when we make these key decisions while we are young, will follow us. They will haunt us. You will
Yeah.
see it again. It will
Yeah.
not go away. And if they're big enough, they'll really fuck up your life,
That's right.
Mhm.
you know?
Yeah, we totally experience that as parents of teenagers. I mean, you start saying, hey, you're making these adult like decisions, they have adult like consequences. And, you know, what you said about having the people around you, mentorship, like we're talking about when we were younger and we didn't have social media. What I love about having social media is that someone can find, and again, this is all subjective and relative, but like find someone like you, find somebody that can provide the guidance through sharing their mistakes and being brave enough to do so, which is what I
Yeah.
love so much about not just you showing what you do in, you know, at training, but also what you share about yourself on a personal level. And the fact that you're here today, kind of saying, let me help you turn decades of learning and screw ups into
Yep.
days so that you don't do the same damn thing.
Exactly.
And the vulnerability and courage to do so. And if more people humanized their experiences and shared them, we all have so much in common when it comes
Yeah.
to that, because we've all different varying levels, but we've all experienced some type of
Yep.
trauma and turmoil that we've had to come through.
Yeah.
And it's so relatable when we're not acting like I'm good,
Everything is
everything's perfect.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. Life is lifing, girl. You know, life is lifing. And I think it is getting increasingly harder for people to take care of themselves. And, you know, I think while social media is good, there's a lot of pressures and things that
Yep.
are out there that, you know, force us to believe things about ourselves that are not true, whether we're not adequate enough, you know, whether we're not pretty enough, whether we're not, you know, all of these kind of subliminal messages that we tell ourselves, right? And so,
That's
you
right.
know, I have been a fighter my whole life, you know, in my eyes, I see that you know, I'm here for a reason and I'm on that journey to kind of find that purpose because, you know, self-fulfillment, you know, human empowerment, self-fulfillment, all of these things are what, you know, make us have fulfilling lives, you know, leading with purpose and all of this stuff. And I'm on that journey myself, right? Like
Yep.
I've learned, you know, I had a conversation yesterday with a guy. It was so funny, you guys. And I asked these questions. So we were talking about money and wealth and all of this stuff, right? Everybody is, you know, how do I get to retirement, you know? And I talked to this very wealthy guy yesterday. I was on site at Rivian in Palo Alto. I said, man, you've gone through a lot of shit, you know? I said, but you're so stressed out about retiring. Please tell me, what are you going to do when you retire?
Yeah.
Do you know, you guys, he stopped and he had a fucking moment. He's like, I never thought about that. He's like, I need to go back. He's going to St. Martin next week. Okay, let's just start there. He's going to St.
Yeah.
Martin.
Right.
And I said, you're talking about, you know, he went through divorce, he's special needs child, very, really interesting story. And he's done, you know, kite sailing or kite surfing and other cool things. But you guys, his face was like, shit. I don't know. And I don't know if it's because he's been a provider his whole life and he hasn't done anything else but provide, but he hasn't thought about the things that he's going to do when he's free.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
that was terrifying to me. It was terrifying to me. And it made me think, okay, how are we living out our lives? You know, last week I talked to my grandpa, 70 something years old. My grandma died from Alzheimer's very young, was shocked. You know, she had a huge impact on my life, help raise me because I didn't have my mom growing up, right? And he's lonely. But I asked my dad, what does this guy do every day? You know, what does he do? He's 75 something. He sits in his house. He does nothing. He goes to McDonald's, gets his coffee, he sits there and watches TV. I said, what kind of fucking life is that? You know,
Right.
some people are okay with that, but are they really happy or they're just floating through, you know?
Yep.
And I don't believe anybody truly, no matter how stubborn, no matter how set in their ways, how whatever it is, I don't really think that that's how any human being wants to live.
I agree with you in that way. I think we all just get so caught up in surviving and providing and doing what we think we should be doing in the whatever role we're playing. We identify so much with the labels that we attach ourselves to that
Yes.
when we do have the time, we look up like your retiree or your client who's thinking about retirement and go, well, what the hell am I going to do? I just knew that I needed to get to this exit ramp, but now I'm off the exit ramp. Now what? Which way do I go? Left, right?
Yeah.
Do I keep going straight? And that sucks.
Yeah.
That sucks. And Greg and I share our story, and, we're both writing books. Mine's almost complete. His is just beginning. Not to talk about ourselves. It isn't just it's all about us, but it's not about us. It's to say, hey, you're not alone. And like, you don't have to have a rock bottom moment like we did. You don't have to almost get divorced. You don't have to bury yourself in credit card debt. You don't have to make those decisions because you think you should be doing something. You can start right now making small, meaningful changes in your life that are in the direction that you really want to go, if you take the time to identify what that is.
Absolutely.
I think that's what I love so much about you too, is that you are showcasing that in all of these ways fearlessly. And it wasn't always that way, I'm sure.
Yeah.
And maybe it isn't always that way now, but it definitely appears that way in all the right ways, not in a comparison way or a fake way, but in all the right ways that are very genuine and authentic to who you are. And I feel like I already know you and feel inspired by it, because it's like, you don't have to do that. You don't have to share it. You could just go to work. You could go do your thing, work out, and not showcase any of the things that you have, but they're gifts to share with everyone and inspire so many. So I absolutely love that you are doing that, and that you take this knowledge that you have from working with people all day and the financial world and in real life, and then also from your community and your gym and the fight world and what you've learned there, and tie it all together and say, hey guys, take what you need. I'm just showing you kind of what works for me and how many people you're touching in that way. So it always circles back to thank you for being you, and thank you for sharing all this, because it's in my opinion, one of the most important things. We have all these connection tools, but we're so disconnected, and community is like the heart of what makes people go. It's what makes change in people's lives, is being connected and feeling seen. So
yeah. And the other part of that too is like, from a faith standpoint, right? I am Christian. I grew up UCC, which is kind of Catholic, it's like Catholic, right? I lost touch with that. It was never forced upon me when I was young. My dad never forced religion down my throat. He allowed me to kind of take whatever path that I wanted. And I've been to all kinds of churches. I've read the Quran, which is a Muslim. I've gone through Baptist church. I've gone to Catholic church. I've gone to all things. And I think in that discovery too, like after I got into that motorcycle accident, I was like, I was lost. I was really lost. And I'm like, what am I doing here? And like, what am I supposed, it was really a lot for one 16 to 18-year-old girl to handle, which I felt like I was very alone growing up. I felt like I had an older sister, but she was like always out doing her own thing. My dad was always working. I didn't have my mom, and I was very alone. And for some, how I just like, I sought relationships outside of that to find those connections for myself, because I didn't get them at home. Right. And, my faith journey was really interesting because, I was totally in this darkest place, and this lady, Tony, she actually was in jail. She was incarcerated for years for tax fraud, things like that. And then she got out, and she's like, yeah, you really need to, come to church with me. Like, let's check it out. And I went to this crazy Christian Baptist church, and it was big. It was a syndicate church, and they were hopping around, and the Holy Spirit was in that mug. Okay. And I was, came from a conservative, like, semi-Catholic background. I was like, what is this?
What is happening? Yeah.
This is fucking crazy. And I was like, but I felt it. I was like, whoa, like this is a lot. And so I continued to go with her. And I felt that almost like that energy that I felt was when I was cheering, you know what I mean? Because it was like, it was high energy transfer. It was like these people and their, unwavering faith in their Christianity. It was really cool. And so I started researching and discovering, like, what do I believe in? Like, what do I even, where do I start? Like, am I somebody that believes in the universe and all of these things? And whatever it is, it doesn't matter. We have religious warfare and all that. Who cares, right? You believe what you believe. I respect that. And that's it. When we die, nobody knows what's going to happen. And if you're in the right lane, you're in the fucking right lane, right?
That's right.
That's it. But if it's something that empowers you and it gives you a foundation and it gives you something to live off of, for me, I was like, well, about, what is God doing to me? Like, what is my path? Like, but every single, is at the moment I turned to my faith and I dedicated to that relationship, right? My decisions, whether it's my relationships with, a significant other, if it's about work or my decisions, like I'm a spicy human being, okay? But for the most part, I do try to lead with love, with women, with anybody, how women can be. I mean, the moment they're like, assholes, I'm like, bitch, I don't like, we're good. I don't
This is
need
not
it.
the energy I
Yeah,
want in my life
not
here.
like there's like all this going on in my world and I don't need that.
Yeah, that's right.
You
That's
know,
right.
and we shouldn't be like that. And society pushes us like that. But what I'm saying is like, leading with love and some of these things sometimes would solve a lot of issues and a lot of problems. And so when I'm dealt with confrontation or things like that, I, instead of being this person that's like pops off or whatever, and I have in the past, but like just leading with those intentions of like, how can we serve others,
Mhm.
right? And so for me, that serving is through sharing my story and sharing the experience, because I know that I'm not the only one out there, and I know what it feels like to be lonely, not have a path, not have a direction, not understand, I didn't come from a wealthy place. How do I even start? You know
Yeah.
what I mean? And so that for me is what I believe is like my passion and my purpose, to kind of share that,
Yep. Just lead with love. Your God, you can be your own God. You know what I'm saying? Like your relationship with yourself is so important.
Yeah.
And I don't know any of this from social media until this conversation, but like the work that you've done on yourself and in addressing some of the things that you've been through and kind of handling them with extreme ownership and knowing, having the tools then to know what to do with them, to
Yeah.
know how to make your decisions about who to be around, what energy to accept in your life, what your self-worth is and what it is not, where it
Yeah.
does not come from, is so huge. And so that level of like extreme ownership shows through in what you do share, but having this conversation that's more in depth, it's definitely very easy to see that you've done a lot of work and soul
Yeah.
searching to point you in the right direction, and continuously do. With an open mind, you will never stop learning, right?
Yeah.
You may try something, you may not like it, you may do it, you may fail, and you'll go, what did I learn? How can I make that
Right.
better next time, or myself better next time, and make
Right.
sure that I honor that in me. And
Yeah.
that's very, very cool to hear you say
Yeah.
and articulate in the way that you are with your
Yeah.
experiences, because you should share more of that on your social media, which I
I
think
know,
that's the
I know.
direction you're
I'm
going
working.
in. But you have so much value to add to people. If
Yeah.
you only had like an extra arm and like 3 extra hours,
Yeah, I
right? You'd be
know,
like,
I
I
know.
got it.
I did just start a coaching program, that is a mentoring program that is going to help me, kind of change the narrative, I think, in the story of my brand, and like identifying who Des is to my community of people and creating more awareness. And that takes time, that takes,
Yeah.
creativity in terms of that. But like, that is a journey that I'm currently on, and doing things, like I said in the beginning, like this kind of helps shape that story. So thank you for having me, because that, this is all part of the overall picture, right? This is part of overall everything, and getting out there and building a platform and all of these things. And we've all faced adversity, and we can all learn from one another. And so I think like if you have built a platform that is large, that you should be doing something with that.
Yeah.
You should be doing something that's serving a higher purpose than just serving yourself, because of course I want to be successful. Of course, I want to make lots of money. I want to do these things, but I think my end goal is about serving others. Like I want to make money and be successful so that I can serve others in the future that were like me, because I'm so passionate about that, right? Because of the curiosity, because of the hardship. And you have to be curious enough to want to go through self-healing, go through figuring out what is the next step, curious enough to figure out what that path looks like to get to the end of that goal. You know what I'm saying? And like for me, I'm a planner, I'm a financial planner, right? This is what I plan for people's lives. I plan for the biggest things in their lives, buying a home, how to pay for a kid's college. I just told my client last week where she's stressed the heck out. She's stressed out in the tech field, main provider of her home, all of these things, great mom, 2 or 3 kids. And, you know, she makes a high income earner, but she's stressed, man. And she came to me and she's like, Des, you know, I don't know, like, do we have enough? Can I like retire early? Man, I went through the whole plan for her. I didn't care. I said, I went through that thing 10 times, you know, to make sure that things were, and I told her she could retire this year. And you know, the look on her face was so, you know, her face, the weight just came off of her shoulder. And so there's fulfilling parts in this, but like to make decisions for other people is also like, it is huge, you know,
Very
and
heavy.
yeah, it's heavy. And when you can give back in other ways. Now, I don't know if I'll be in wealth management forever. You know, I don't think my core desires are in dealing with wealthy people's money and continuing to keep them wealthy, more so than it is building wealth and giving people the right tools
Yep.
that they need to you know, build some kind of wealth for themselves, especially if they haven't, you know. And unfortunately, like I said, my experiences, I've been in affordable living homes. I've done these things. I've lived in, you know, I've had EBT cards and I've worked that system and like I've
Yep.
done all kind of shit that was, you know, not who I am today, you know, and I'm
Yep.
not proud of those things, but I will say that there are loopholes in the system. And sometimes we need people to teach us those loopholes that we can change the narrative of our life, our generational curses that we have that we want to get rid of. And so, you know, in this journey, like that's what's fulfilling to me. So I want to get to a point where that makes sense, that I can fill someone up like that.
And you totally already are, maybe more than you even know. Who you are today is because of all those things. And so sometimes like that's hard for me to accept sometimes, is that some of the shit that I've done that is like absolutely inexcusable, unforgivable on all levels
You're like, ooh,
of who I am today. I needed her to do those
yeah,
things, to learn. I wish I didn't have to, but that's who I am today. If I can help somebody else not do that, and it sounds like you're in a similar boat, like, let's talk about it then.
yeah,
What I also hear you say that I just absolutely love is that you're really connected to your why. You see what this is, what this purpose is in your life, and
yeah,
you feel it and you live it. And when you know what your why is, you can figure out how, and you are
yeah,
figuring out how every single day.
yeah,
And the more that you show up in this space, using your platform is so selfless of you. I bet when you first started sharing videos and progressive combos of the week and showing what you were doing just because you loved it, you probably weren't like, oh, I'm going to be a professional fighter someday and I'm going to have this platform. It was just like, you just started, you loved it, you started sharing it, and all of a sudden here you are. And we didn't even
yeah,
talk about that, but you got your professional status last year. So we can
yep,
circle back as we
yep,
wrap up to the fighting
yep,
piece. I appreciate getting to know you on such a deeper level too,
yeah.
by the way. But circling back to that, like, what did that feel like? Were you like, oh my God, I can't even believe this is happening?
Yeah, yeah, for sure. It was, because it's been 8 years, you know, and I've put hours 6 days a week, you know, I'd say 4 to 6 days a week consistently for the last 8 years, you know, outside of taking some vacations or whatever. And most of the time I'm taking vacations, I'm training while I'm taking that vacation.
Hmm.
You know,
Yeah.
my loved ones hate that, and that's fine. I don't really care, because this is what I love to do and this is my life, you know. But I will say, like, it was huge. It was huge moving to professional status, you know. My coaches and I have been discussing this transition, and you know, there's some exciting things coming up on the forefront. I can't really talk about them right now, but in May, I think I will be fighting May 18th here locally in the Bay Area, which is, I haven't fought in the Bay Area since my first amateur fight. So I'm really excited to be like in the hometown kind of position on a really kind of big stage that's about to happen. And you know, I'm really excited to kind of just turn that page. You know,
Yeah.
I'm 34 years old. I have, you know, only a little bit more time of this in this world, right?
Sure.
Of fighting and my body and where I want to go with those things. But while I am doing that, I'm going to take it to the farthest level as I can. I'm going to be the best version of this that I can, because then again, it's the equity, the sweat that I put in here, right?
That's
To
it.
not strive to the highest level that I possibly can, that God will allow me to take. So
Yeah.
it would be a disservice to my time, which I can never give back,
That's
right?
right.
For what I've put into this. So, I plan on taking this, to the highest level. I'd love to get a monster sponsorship once I get there. That would be really awesome. But it's all about building the platform so I can use that to do other things, right? And that's kind of where I'm at with the fighting. But yeah, May 18th, I think it's going to happen here in San Jose. I'm really excited. Took some fight photos as of late. We're looking for an opponent right now. The first pro fight was in Vegas at the old Hard Rock Hotel against a tough opponent. She had a lot of experience, but it was a good challenge for me to kind of like bring a little dog out, right?
Sure.
Go 5 rounds of that. And so I'm just grinding, man. I'm just grinding.
I can't express how excited I am to have just had this conversation with you. Just again, at the risk of exposing myself as like your biggest fan and a complete nerd. I'm blushing, absolutely embarrassing myself here. But
No.
I am so grateful that you have taken the time out of your busy life to jump on here and share beyond what you share on Instagram, because I sense that's what's next. The fight space stays, you keep grinding, but the coaching space is evolving, and you are born for it. You just absolutely have what it takes to help. You're already doing it, so you will help so many people by continuing to lean into that.
Thank you.
No doubt in my mind. So guys, if you're not following Desiree, you need to follow her immediately. She is fun to watch. She is spicy. She's absolutely nailed that description of herself. And obviously, if you have listened to this entire episode, you know that she has so much wealth and richness to add to your mindset and to your life. So where can we find more about you, and lead us directly where you want us to go?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I am on Instagram. Is predominantly my main platform. Desi_Lou_Limon. So LIMON Limon. Desi_Lou_Limon. And in terms of wealth management, I'm at Morgan Stanley in the Bay Area. I never really promote those things, but I think it's a huge part of who I am too. So in that regard, I can help on a professional level as well. But yeah, find me on Instagram. I will start my coaching program here soon, and so look forward to some of that content that I'll be launching, and really cool things that are going to be happening. So I appreciate the follow along.
Yes, absolutely. Greg, I totally geeked out at the beginning, and I missed your dad joke.
Look at him.
I mean, he just sits there and quietly doesn't say anything. He's a shining
This is my
moment.
big moment. This is my big moment.
And I stole it from you with my absolute enthusiasm. So please land this plane with a dad joke.
So Desi, do you like pirates?
Yes.
Well, that's good, because pirates, do you know why pirates are great boxers?
What? No.
Because they have a great left hook.
Yeah. How could we leave that one off?
I love it. I love it. Guys that have dad jokes are awesome. I wish I was like, I will remember that actually an hour from now, just so you know, Greg.
It's all you. Take it.
I love it. You guys are awesome. Hey, thanks for being a good example too.
Yeah. Thanks so much for all that you do, all that you share, the inspiration that you provide. And I can't wait to see how this all continues to grow and what happens next.